Sini.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, good morning all. Today we are going to look at the odd punya group. So last week kita tengok dekat East. East is macam mana?
Positive law.
Positive law. Maksud positive law ialah in summary.
In summary is what law is lah. What the law
It is what it is. Kan?
Yes.
It is what it is. So jangan banyak cakap. You know? Kalau dia kata salah, law kata salah, you keluar
Salah lah.
MCO, right? Keluar jalan.
Contoh macam menteri semalam lah.
Menteri kata apa? Saya tak dengar berita.
Okay, timbalan menteri dengan Esko Perak tu kena lah.
Oh, kena?
Kena. 1,000 orang.
Bagus. Jadi macam ni lah. It is what it is. Tak kira law is law, right? Tak kira sama ada hang menteri ke, hang siapa ke, tak kira lah. No one is above the law. Meaning kalau tindakan tak diambil kepada menteri, I don't know what happened dalam cerita tu lah. But the rule is, if anything that is not being taken action against the minister, then he is like above the law. So how can somebody is above the law? The law is what the law is. You know, law kata keluar salah. You go against the rule, salah kan? It is what it is. Kalau lah kata orang lain kena 1,000, hang pun kena 1,000 lah.
Yeah.
Right, fair. So, tapi kalau odd ni dia kata tak boleh. Dia kata, okay, ada yang rakyat biasa kena, tapi setengah-setengah orang tak perlulah because dia menteri. You know, because dia nak buat kerja. Because dia ada kerja yang nak. Jadi undang-undang yang kata semua orang tak kira siapa akan disaman, boleh diketepikan. Boleh ditengok dengan cara yang lain. Kenapa? Because ada reason dia. Ini odd group yang kata macam tu. So the odd group dia subjektif. Law adalah subjektif. Yang East group ni dia objektif. Tak kira A, B, B. You know? Tapi odd ni dia kata, oh dia mungkin A, mungkin D, mungkin C, or D, you know. Dia bergerak macam tu. So they are prescriptive punya group. Dia prescribe. Dia cerita. Bila you cerita, you akan cerita ikut you punya pendapat lah. Ikut you punya style that you want to explain. You prescribe. You pergi doktor, you jumpa doktor dan doktor prescribe dekat ubat dekat you. Maksudnya dia bagi dia punya opinion lah. Apa yang sakit you, ini ubat ni untuk ni, you know. Then slash normative ni apa dia? Normative is norms, ya. Kalau kita dengar norma hidup. So normative is something yang kita yang subjektif lah, norms. Norms kepada sesuatu, kepada kebiasaan. Ya, apa yang biasa dalam masyarakat. Kalau undang-undang tu walaupun ada, tapi kebiasaannya undang-undang katalah undang-undang jalan raya. Undang-undang jalan raya sepatutnya dipakai untuk semua. Tapi diketepikan kepada menteri kalau dia nak kerja, nak pergi meeting daripada Putrajaya nak pergi ke KL. So dia akan naik kereta dengan dia punya escort, akan bawa laju sampai 160 km sejam. Elak habis semua orang. You know. So it is normative because tengok pada norma, pada situation. Right. So nanti kita go into detail then you will see better on the prescriptive, normative dengan the subjective punya situation. Okay, kita masuk next slide. Okay, so group dia siapa yang kita akan tengok? Memang group dia ramai lah. They are many lah, many. So kalau kita tengok ni the odd group, kalau kita tengok sini, dia ada John Stuart Mill, John Rawls, Weber, Kim Lika dengan Dawkins. Ya. Dan kita akan tengok 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 orang. They do not describe facts, but are demands or prescription that men shall behave in certain way. So jadi kalau dia orang ni, kalau you tanya dia orang pasal undang-undang, dia kata undang-undang adalah mengikut apa yang society demand, and that men shall behave in certain way because prescription of the society towards that. First kita tengok John Stuart Mill dengan rambut dia yang sempoi. Kalau kita tengok ni liberalist ya, dia memang seorang yang liberal lah. Kita tak perlu kata ni apa gang Odd ni, gang Odd ni dia naturalist, dia ada yang group yang liberalist. So in his idea, he actually contributed widely to social theory, political theory, and political economy. So John Stuart ni a very influential person lah. Everyone, kalau you law ataupun you belajar sociology, then John Stuart Mill tak boleh elak daripada coming to know him. So he adopts scientific method that is to discover the unknown. From using inductive reasoning to discover general laws on specific act. So inductive. So inductive maksudnya apa? Dia ada inductive dengan deductive. So inductive is that kita dapatkan semua information yang sekeliling kita dan kita formulate satu pendapat, satu idea ataupun satu formula. So dia gunakan ini sebagai scientific method lah. Sebab scientific method ada dua. So descriptive, inductive dengan deductive. So kalau you nak tahu what the details about inductive and deductive, you go and Google it up. So law are discovered through observation and induction and required empirical verification. So jadi kalau kita observe the law, then you will some kind of make a conclusion and you can induce to say that the law should be like this. Kalau you tengok masyarakat behavior dia masyarakat ni nak apa? Apa sebenarnya yang kita nak? Daripada apa yang observation yang kita tengok kepada masyarakat, dan kita akan boleh buat satu induction kepada kita boleh buat satu rumusan bahawa society ni dia sebenarnya nak apa. Sebab kita tengok society pada dalam banyak situation. You look at the various factors. Kita tengok dalam dia punya cara bermasyarakat, kita tengok cara perlakuan dia, kita tengok cara ekonomi dia, So from all perspective, then you will start to have some kind of general idea, and from that general idea, you formulate some concept. So he did that kind of observation lah. But his observation is based on empirical verification. Maksudnya dia verify through formula yang scientific in nature. Contoh, kita dah buat lah ini. Dah buat belum? Belum Asal macam mana? Ya? Okay.
Tak pernah tengok pun.
Belum
Okay. Tak, sebab Sir hari-hari tengok slide ni, itu pasal Sir.
Yalah, pening malah. Okay, contoh nak contoh senang dia ambil saya letak sini lah senang So the best way to introduce Mill's method is perhaps through example lah dekat sini dia kata contoh kalau kita tengok family ni pergi makan dinner lah, and dia balik-balik semua orang sakit. Jadi kita nak identify apa yang menyebabkan sakit. So kita buat investigation. Tanya mak, tanya bapa, sister dengan you. Okay. Okay, siapa yang makan oyster? Semua kata ya. Siapa yang makan beef? Ada yang kata ya, ada yang kata tak. Siapa yang makan salad?
Okay.
Ada yang tak yes dengan no. So tak ada yes dengan no, dia berbeza. Ada yang yes sebelum ni iaitu beef, tapi macam sister tadi kan, nampak yes untuk beef, no untuk salad. Jadi tak apa, kita carry on. Kita ambil noodle tengok. Noodle siapa yang ambil, you know? Ada yang tak makan, ada yang makan, you know. Jadi kalau kita tengok dalam keadaan ni, apa yang menyebabkan semua sakit?
Oyster.
Oyster lah. Sebab oyster
Oyster.
semua makan. Kan? So jadi ini adalah cara scientific untuk kita identify. Kita tengok situation of the society, kita buat observation kita plot in terms of scientific punya analysis, then kita come up to a conclusion. And that conclusion kita kata induktif kita kata yang menyebabkan sakit ialah oyster. Kenapa? Sebab oyster semua orang makan. Tapi yang lain, beef, salad, noodle, ada yang makan, ada yang tak makan. Jadi itu bukan yang menyebabkan orang sakit. Pemberangkalian yang besar ialah oyster. So kalau kita tengok scientific ni, kita tak introduce benda lain. Kalau kita introduce benda lain, mungkin dia akan berubahlah benda yang keputusan kita tadi. Ya. Mungkin elemen lain ialah bukan makanan langsung, tetapi mungkin udara dalam rumah tu sendiri. Bila dia orang balik ada something yang dalam udara yang dia orang tak perasan, di mana semua orang sakit. So these are the things yang kita kena identify. This is the rules. Mill's rule of argument says that in a class where an effect occurs, there is a single prior factor that is common to all, and in this case, the oyster lah is the cause of the effect. Okay, saya faham lah bila tengok dia punya Mills yang tadi kita tengok dia go on a scientific empirical verification based on the data yang kita dikumpulkan. Okay, so question is, how come some other societies in different countries are better than others? Jadi kalau kita tengok, kalau kita buat study dekat Malaysia, kadar kemiskinan Malaysia is like, kalau kita compare dengan negara lain, macam mana? Okay, kalau kita tengok law yang kita apply dekat Malaysia, hasil dia macam mana? Contoh kalau kita MCO sekarang ni, semua country in the world ada MCO. Ada yang boleh keluar dengan syarat you pakai mask. Ada yang keluar kalau you pakai mask maksudnya you sakit. Ada yang tak pakai mask. So ada yang tak boleh keluar langsung. Ada yang boleh keluar macam kita. You know, depends on whether you are crucial, essential punya area or not. So this is actually a scientific data or scientific study where we look at the empirical data. So we analyze and then we make some improvement to the study. So apa yang dia cakap ni? Mills ni dia kata we have to rationalize the law and legal institution. So kita kena tengok legal institution macam mana. Dia sebab ni kalau kita tengok sini dia philosophic radical, dia advocates kepada males rights to vote. Dulu tak ada kuasa kan untuk lelaki untuk nak vote. So we have a situation whereby males have the rights to vote. And then the use of economic theory in political decision making. Okay, kalau situation whereby kita tengok how society is being governed, dulunya kita guna hak pada raja-raja, say for example, so kita tak boleh pakai lagi hak raja-raja kita kena pakai economic theory. So economic theory contoh kita pakai sekarang ialah kapitalis lah. Okay, kalau kita tengok country-country yang komunis, dia orang pakai communism punya teori ya. So jadi next one dia kata politics oriented by human happiness rather than natural rights. Okay. So for example dia kata kat sini, Mills recommend industrial cooperative by workers. He thought that this cooperative had the advantage of over communes or other socialist institution because they are able to compete against traditional firm. So kalau kita tengok firm sekarang, syarikat-syarikat yang kita ada sekarang, dia adalah bergerak atas dasar economic teori kapitalis. So jadi kapitalism ni tak bagus because dia mencekam, dia mencengkam keadaan pekerja. Pekerja kalau tak datang kerja, dan pekerja adalah satu beban. So kita kena buang pekerja. So Mas dia nampak macam dia tak boleh nak survive, dia automatically buang pekerja. So that is a capitalist punya method yang kita pakai on the economy. Tapi kalau kita pakai the communist pula, communism yang socialist kata okay, semua orang tak ada apa-apa. Ya, semua harta adalah untuk semua orang. Dijaga oleh kerajaan yang satu, macam Russia, macam China. Russia dia pun dah ubah, dia no longer communist macam China kan. So everything is belonging to the government. But now China has changed a bit. Dia dah bagi kapitalis dah masuk dah. Capitalism punya element dah masuk sebab kalau they did not change their method of running the country by using communism alone, Marxism alone, sebab dia communism ni datang daripada Marxism lah. So kalau dia pakai juga, dia akan jadi macam Russia, akan runtuh. Okay, konsep of communism akan runtuh sebab society ni kalau you tekan sangat dia society, dia akan cari cara lain. Macam contoh kita letak air ya. Air kalau kita tahan air yang jatuh daripada mengalir daripada satu tempat tinggi ke bawah, kita tahan dia akan cari jalan yang terbaik untuk dia turun dengan sendiri. Sama dengan masyarakat. Kalau you tahan masyarakat, dia kata everything semua kerajaan punya, rakyat punya, tapi kerajaan pegang sekejap. So rakyat ni dia akan cari cara yang lain. Contoh, coklat tak boleh makan dekat Russia. Coklat is a luxurious thing. So susah nak jumpa coklat sebab coklat bila luxury, duit untuk nak produce coklat ni kena buat factory yang lain yang boleh mendatangkan faedah yang lebih besar kepada masyarakat. So kita tak payah buat coklat. So rakyat dia teringin dekat nak makan coklat. So dia akan bergerak secara underground. Dia akan pergi carilah siapa-siapa yang ada coklat yang bawa daripada seluduk daripada negara non-komunis. Kadang-kadang coklat juga diberi kepada pemimpin-pemimpin komunis ni untuk dia orang macam ini adalah hadiah lah sebagai pemimpin, dia dapat makan coklat. So mungkin dia punya orang kanan dia ataupun pekerja-pekerja dia buat lari coklat tu bagi dekat orang dengan jual dengan harga yang tinggi. So macam itu example lah untuk komunism. Kalau kita tengok dekat dekat America, you know, in 1930s, the American government dia curb liquor. Tak boleh, satu Amerika tak boleh makan, tak boleh minum arak. So itu adalah by law. So bila kerajaan Amerika buat macam tu, dia nak memeteras ekonomi dan behavior. So orang bila dia dah biasa duk isap pula, dia biasa duk makan minum arak, so eventually dia akan cari sources dia sendiri. you biasa nampak dalam cerita-cerita yang dia panggil moonshine, moonshine moonshine nak kata macam mana, alkohol lah, yang buat sendiri, yang dekat dalam hutan-hutan, nanti dia orang pergi buat masak sendiri dia punya arak. So dalam cerita-cerita nampak lah dia punya 1930s punya moonshine punya aktiviti ekonomi. So thriving, macam mana polis nak buat kerja, susah lah. Because nak kena tangkap orang tu just because the law says arak adalah haram. Sama dengan Malaysia lah, kalau kita tengok benda-benda haram ni yang diharamkan, orang akan cari juga jalan untuk nak buat. Baru-baru ni kita tengok orang panggil ni Grab Grab telah digunakan oleh geng-geng yang ketagih dadah untuk jadi media distribution. Jadi dia telah menyusahkan Grab runner yang lain. Sebab benda ni kalau you stop, dia akan jadi benda yang lain. Dia akan cari jalan yang lain. So bagi setengah-setengah negara macam Scandinavian countries, so dia orang kata daripada susah sangat kita nak kontrol dadah ni, kita legalize dadah. Okay. Bila legalize dadah, kita senang kita nak kontrol dadah jenis apa yang okey. So jadi dia adalah satu riadah yang dibolehkan. So you can see that. So Mills ni dia investigate dalam keadaan macam mana. So industri kooperatif ni macam mana? Daripada kita biarkan satu keadaan di mana kapitalis yang mencengkam rakyat, di mana rakyat adalah pekerja, di mana kerajaan adalah pemegang kepada semua harta, kita kena buat secara kooperatif. Ini saya setujulah dari segi kooperatif ni, di mana semua pekerja adalah owner of the company that they are working with. Imagine that your parents now working with a company other than the government lah. Kalau dia kerja dekat private, they are not workers. They are the owners of the company themselves. So kalau owners, they are shareholders. Kalau shareholders, they akan terima dividend by the end of the year. So dia akan jadi pekerja, dapat gaji. By the end of the year, dia akan dapat dividend. So dan juga bonuses. Kalau dia kerja, ada yang pekerja yang akan dapat dividen, tetapi ada pekerja yang rajin dan ada yang malas. So pekerja yang rajin akan dapat bonus. Can you imagine? Dapat bonus, dapat dividen, dapat gaji. Okay? So I think it's better for our society. Kalau tidak, tak bergerak kita dalam keadaan kena tindas oleh syarikat. So, Mills introduce apa? Dia introduce Hunt Principle. Dia kata Hunt Principle ni senang je dia kata. Kita law ni sepatutnya bila observation dia tengok, dia kata law ni tak sepatutnya kacau untuk individu. Sebab individu ni dia nak cari something yang dia perlu dalam hidup. Dan apa jadi pun kalau you tahan, society dia akan buat benda tu sendiri. So, might as well kita jangan kacau dia. As long as dia buat sesuatu yang tidak mendatangkan harm kepada seseorang lain, so jadi kita benarkan. So kalau seorang tu dia nak isap dadah, okey, biarkan. Kenapa kita nak ganggu? Kalau orang nak ada bersekedudukan, okey, itu adalah happiness yang dia nak. Dia ni Mills dengan Bantam ni dia they know each other. They don't sit down, discuss things out. So dalam keadaan di mana saya kata tadi, kalau you nak buat maksiat, as long as maksiat tu tak dibuat di luar, you duduk diam-diam seorang-seorang, then okay lah. Sebab you tak harm orang. The harm principle holds that the action of individual should only be limited to prevent harm to others, other individual. So jadi kalau kalau lah kata you minum arak, you punya rights is against the law, it's okay, let them be. Tapi kalau you keluar, you bawa kereta, you akan menyebabkan accident ataupun bahaya untuk orang lain, then the law should come in and prevent you from doing that. So the only purpose for which law can be rightfully exercised over any members of civilized society or community against his will is to prevent harm to others. So kalau lah kata you nak bunuh diri, kenapa you nak kena tahan pula? Orang kalau you tahan pun dia akan bunuh pula. So kita punya law di mana kata kalau you bunuh diri, kalau you tak mati, you masuk penjara because attempt suicide is against the law. So it's against what Mills is saying. Dia kata as long as dia tak kacau you should be able to allow that. Law creation is solely to prevent harm. Apa maksud? Apa objektif law sebenarnya? Adalah untuk menghalang daripada seseorang melakukan kejahatan terhadap orang lain. Therefore, people should be free to do what they want. Now, the question is, can a person be captured for conducting a crime that is public wrong? Say, for example, drinking, having sex, drugs in their private domain. Kalau kita tengok dengan sekarang, tengok Jabatan Agama Islam, dia pergi rumah orang, dia pergi hotel, dia masuk hotel, dia suruh orang buka pintu, they deprive of people punya privacy. Ada certain situation kalau you tengok instances yang terjadi dalam internet, di mana orang tu memang husband and wife, it's just that dia orang tak bawa dokumen, and then dia telah diminta untuk tukar pakaian, di mana dia tak ada privacy, orang semua duk tengok ni jawatan kuasa, the officers yang ada kat situ, they disallow privacy sebab dia dah jatuh hukum. Kau ni dah tak ada apa-apa dokumen, maksudnya kau ni telah menjalankan suatu benda yang maksiat. So therefore tak perlu nak malu-malu, dan tak ada gambar apa semua. It turns out that mereka memang husband and wife, and macam mana keadaan macam tu? So you boleh katakan salah dia orang lah, dia orang tak bawa apa dia punya kad kahwin. So it so happen that dia orang kahwin dekat Southern Thailand, tengah dalam proses untuk nak dapatkan pengesahan. Okay, so that is a situation that is prevailing in our society. Pada saya, Jabatan Agama Islam tak perlu nak gaduh tentang apa yang berlaku dalam di belakang tabir. Okay, kalau macam tu, where do you stop? The authority itu kat mana yang you boleh stop? How can you go into somebody place and saying that I am the authority and I can do whatever I want? So sebenarnya I dapat information daripada first hand, orang yang buat ni kadang-kadang dia orang abuse the law and they utilize the situation into giving untuk gaining some advantage. Dapat tengok orang, body orang, kadang-kadang dapat kena servis, servis macam mana? The officers kata kalau you tak nak ambil tindakan, then you have to service. You know what service means lah, I think everyone adults enough to talk about this. So sorry because kita ni buat law. Kalau you are sensitive about discussing things that you, for your opinion, that we should not be discussing in public, then do another course because this course yang kita buat ni law, we have to deal with all the negative thing in our society. Apa type masyarakat yang ada, apa perbuatan negatif yang masyarakat buat, it will come to our domain. Sebagai lawyer, you tak boleh kata, oh saya tak nak kes-kes macam ni. No. Sebagai lawyer, you kena face the reality that semua orang yang buat jahat dalam masyarakat, semua akan cari lawyer. Kalau you kata you as a judge, semua type masyarakat akan datang dekat you. So kalau kita tak nak discuss benda ni, then therefore you are not going to be a wholesome person. Okay, So boleh nampak tak dia punya method, harm principle. What should be the role of legal institution? Okay, so macam mana legal institution ni termasuk bukan court sahajalah. So police, custom, prison people, Jabatan Agama Islam, legal institution lah, because they are given a task by the law. So the law is being created by the government, by legislators, in order for executive to do their job. So legal institution ni kebanyakannya terdiri daripada 3 executive. So legal executive dia ada mission nak kena buat. So what if a person attempted to cause his own death, euthanasia? Kita banyak dalam Malaysia ni kita ada situation where we prevent people from killing themselves. Tapi kalau orang tu dah sakit sangat, dia nak go out from that misery, so macam mana? So actually kita panggil, you dah belajar medical negligence? Ada tak you belajar medical negligence?
Ada sikit-sikit dalam thought.
Dalam thought dia ada active euthanasia dengan passive euthanasia. Active means you inject little dosage of something into your that person in your body, so that person mati. Kita tak ada lah active euthanasia. Kita ada passive euthanasia, di mana doctors akan buat decision, kata kita tak payah bagilah ubat. So bila kita tak bagi ubat, orang akan mati. Kalau kita tak bagi equipment ke orang tu, dia akan mati. Dalam keadaan COVID ni, kalau kita tak ada MCO, activity of illness ni akan naik. Bila illness naik, everyone will go and ask for help, and the hospital have to make decision di mana dia akan ada sistem. I can't remember the term that they use, tapi dia ada kategori A, B, C. Siapa yang A boleh diselamatkan, perlu diselamatkan, and then dia dapat equipment macam ventilators yang kita ada tak banyak. Kalau 1,000 orang masuk hospital, kita ada ventilator 100, we have to decide siapa yang 100 yang akan dapat. Yang 1,000 tadi kan, 900 tu kita akan biarkan tanpa ventilators, dan dia akan mati sendirilah. So macam saya ambil contoh lah my mom. She was at one time before she died, dia memang ada ventilators punya sokongan hayat. So bila dia dalam keadaan macam tu, kita dalam koma lah, dia kita panggil in vegetative state. Vegetative state maksudnya mental dia dah separuh, ataupun certain percentage of dia punya mental dah rosak. So she is unable to control her body. So she is still alive, she can still hear people, and but she is unable to communicate, and she cannot control her breathing, so she needs the machine to help her out. So the decision comes to us that whether we want to continue her on the life support or not. So everyone pergi ke hospital lah, we have to make a decision. Then the decision, myself, as kita ada 7 adik-beradik, 7 adik-beradik. So daripada 7, saya kata tak apalah, off lah. Dia kata ada setengah kata, kebanyakannya kata on lah. Kalau dia rasa macam tak puas lah tentang the possibility, bila discuss possibility untuk nak baik is very difficult. So saya jenis kata tak apalah, off lah. So my sister marah lah, dia kata how can you say that? I said I have got all the love that I can get from her. We being selfish people, kan, biasalah. I have been close to her when she was before her situation worsened. So every time datang jumpa dia, I kiss her, I peluk her, I letak my my head on her lap, macam when we were young, So I did all that, you know. I said thank you for having me in this life, for caring for me and things like that. So I say I love you every now and then when I see her. So I dah puas, you know. So my sister jawapan dia kata dia tak puas. I say how dare you say that? You know, you have not been close to her, and then suddenly when she is in this situation, then you start to say that, oh, we cannot let her go, uh, for us to get the benefit of her being around. Who is going to take care of her? So after 1 week, yalah, semua orang boleh take time off, tak kerja, datang to take care of her. So if we were to let her be in that situation, though it is in the hospital punya care, but still everyone has to take. Nampak macam selfish lah saya punya attitude ni. So itu yang my wife kata bila dengar cerita ni, dia kata kalau apa-apa jadi dekat saya, when I'm in traumatized punya situation, jangan bagi Haris sign document kata off the off the machine, because I would do that. So kadang-kadang my attitude ni nampak macam pelik sikit lah, because ada people, ada setengah yang koma sampai 2 tahun, tiba-tiba dia bangun daripada koma tu, you know. I look at the situation of other people can utilize the machine, you know. Allah Alam. So that is Mills punya ni lah. When it comes to euthanasia, you tengok countries like Scandinavian countries, you boleh bunuh diri ya. They allow positive euthanasia to be conducted. So kadang-kadang orang kat Amerika dia nak bunuh diri, sakit terlampau sangat, yalah, you be in the state of pain too much, so dia orang minta pergi dekat Scandinavian countries. I can't remember which country. Sweden kot. Sweden dan Netherlands kan mana? Finland. That allows euthanasia. You check on your own. I can't remember already. So euthanasia can take place there. Because why? The law. Yeah, the law in the European countries says euthanasia is allowed. While other countries euthanasia is not allowed. Okay, finish. Soalan, Mills. Simple Dia punya harm principle. Very straightforward. Tapi harm principle ni kalau kita tengok application dia, memang ada yang positif, ada yang negatif. Maksudnya macam mana positif? Positif baguslah. I mean everyone can do whatever they want. It allows people to explore certain things that is prevented by the law. Tapi kalau macam tu, macam mana kalau you allow other people to kill themselves? Dengan anggapan bahawa bila you kill yourself, it is not going to cause any other people harm. Harm ni maksudnya dari segi fizikal lah, bukannya anything else. Tapi harm ni orang criticize him, kata harm is not only physical, it is about economic harm, it is about mental harm. Yeah. So if you look at only one perspective of physical, then your observation is biased, because harm towards physical is just one part of it. So kalau you bunuh diri, apa yang akan efek pada orang lain? You know, the whole society yang kenal you as a family member of that person yang bunuh diri dalam family you, dia adik dia bunuh diri. Family tu dia memang ada mental sikit. Orang ni selalu bila dia boleh buat assumption, dia akan buat assumption. Dia kata family ada masalah sikit. So bila masalah, dia akan harm people lah, in terms of interaction dia orang tak nak communicate dengan dia orang. Tapi yang seorang ada yang buat masalah dalam family tu, you know, that is just one example lah. Kalau you have some others, do you have any question on this? Anyone? Or is it okay? Hello?
Tak ada, sir.
Tak ada. Right. So for selanjutnya perempuan lah yang akan tanya soalan-soalan ni. Girls,
Ada tadi sir.
apa dia?
Dekat group chat. Cuba
A
saya tengok.
group chat. Group chat. Mana ada group chat?
Sir.
Tanya.
Saya nak tanya, kalau contoh kan kalau suicide kan, kalau contoh dia orang yang bunuh diri tu dia bunuh diri, kan loan dengan debt tu still dia punya waris
Betul. Financial punya harm towards others kan. So kalau nak mati, matilah. Tapi masalahnya bila mati, kalau you pakai harm principle, aku tak kacau orang pun. Tapi aku mati seorang je. Tapi dengan elemen yang tak ada hutang, kalau ada hutang, orang lain pula ada masalah, you know. Kalau lah kata hutang akan mati, kontrak kita belajar kontrak the contract expired. There is no contract lah because one party died kan. So obligation of the others is not going to be you tak boleh salahkan adik-beradik lain untuk recover the hutang. Kalau macam bank kan, kita tengok parents mati and then suddenly the bank comes and ask the family members to pay. Apa pula? The contract is with that particular person yang mati. So kalau dia bunuh diri, nasib lah. You pergi kubur minta daripada dia lah. Kenapa nak minta daripada kami? Tapi but the bank would say, I want the money from his property or her property. Dah susah menyusahkan pula untuk you nak sebagai administrator or testator, you dah belajar equity kan. So jadi you dalam keadaan macam tu, you pula nak kena buat on behalf of orang yang bunuh diri tadi. Jadi that is a situation. Betul tak what I'm saying that you are saying just now?
Betul sir.
Dia menyusahkan orang.
Sir. That's why jangan bunuh diri kalau ada hutang.
Make sure everything semua okay. Tapi orang yang bunuh diri adalah orang yang banyak hutang lah.
Most of them lah. Yes, under pressure.
Jadi you punya position as the law creator, you kena take into consideration. Okay? Kalau macam ni lah keadaan ekonomi. Kalau you study, tak tahulah orang buat study ke tak. Study about those people yang bunuh diri. Kenapa dia bunuh diri? Is it mental? Is it influence? Is it culture? Is it because of the debt punya situation? So kalau that is the situation yang ramai bunuh diri, then kita kena study lah macam mana nak make sure that everyone tak ada debt, hutang tak ada. Macam mana? So kita kena formulate. You as the person that is going to formulate the law later on in your life, so you have to take into consideration. You tak boleh kata it is what it is. Okay? Jangan bunuh diri. So kalau person dia bunuh diri tapi dia tak mati, dia akan masuk penjara. You can easily say that it is the law. Tetapi kalau kita tengok sebenarnya, it should not be lah. It should be something else. It should be apa influence of the law to change the society punya behavior. Like for example, ramai yang bunuh diri dekat Jepun. Kalau kita tengok Jepun memang ada tempat, semalam saya pun tengok dalam YouTube, just tengok tempat-tempat hantu tiba-tiba tak seronok tengok tempat-tempat hantu. So dekat Jepun ni ada satu place yang memang dia orang tak bagi orang masuk because itu tempat orang bunuh diri. Banyak yang bunuh diri because yalah orang Jepun ni dia tak ada agama, because they don't believe in God. Dia believe in siapa? Siapa God dia?
Matahari.
Okay. The God dia orang adalah raja dia.
Oh, okay. Emperor.
Okay. Emperor dia. So World War II kita nampak macam mana dia punya.
But that is during the World War II, World War I punya punya era. But however modern era ni
dia tak banyak sangat lah.
Symbol. Yeah, Emperor is just a symbol.
Itu yang sekarang punya keadaan. So jadi bila dia tak percaya kepada Tuhan, irrespective whichever Tuhan, so they don't believe in afterlife. Bila they don't believe in afterlife, life is about now. Okay, if you feel that now you're not happy, then you have to do some action that needs to be rectifying that problem lah. So dia orang bunuh diri. So bila dia bunuh diri, macam mana kita nak study? Kebanyakannya orang yang bunuh diri, student. Student bila stres sangat, dia akan ambil option simple, which is to bunuh diri. Dekat Jepun, bila dia orang tak fail in their study, ataupun fail to enter university, so dia orang akan resort to bunuh diri. Because the pressure of the society is too great. Okay, tak boleh masuk universiti, tak akan dapat kerjaan. Padahal kerjaan from university is just one way. You can see I can see my friends yang mana yang buat yang study tak bagus, tapi they are even wealthier than my my income sekarang. Ada yang dapat sampai 40-50 ribu sebulan, things like that. Okay, so it's not everything. So jadi kita kena identify what is the problem and how to utilize the law in order for us to prevent that kind of things. Okay, any other questions that you want to ask? Tak ada.
No, sir.
Okay,
No.
next person is Rawls. Yeah, Rawls ni dia as we are saying about odd, yeah. So the odd group is the should group lah, yeah. So Rawls ni kalau kita tengok gambar belah kiri tu, he is considered as arguably the most important political philosophers of the 20th century. Dia ni sampai to the extent Ronald Reagan, US President, akan ajak Rawls ni makan dinner, to discuss about his ideas. He's a very influential person. See, he wrote a series of highly influential articles during the 1950s and 60s, which helped the Anglo-American punya situation, di mana kita ada Martin Luther King yang kita nampak kat situ. Martin Luther King, are you familiar with him? Dia kata, I have a dream. Dia kena tembak lah. But the activist, betul lah, Martin Luther King. I don't know whether I'm saying it right or not.
Malcolm X.
Betul.
Malcolm X. Malcolm X yang pakai spek tu kan. So this movement, macam kita tengok gambar yang tengah sikit yang ada pakai topi tu kan, yang dalam bas tu. So dulu bas is not meant for blacks tak boleh. So balik pada keadaan di mana kita tengok racial discrimination in America berlaku pada blacks, and they themselves yang bawa blacks tu masuk. So but they are being unfair to the blacks. And then kalau you tengok restaurant for blacks, belah kanan tu restaurant for blacks sajalah. When it comes to bawah tu, you tengok budak-budak, schools are not allowed to have blacks. So this situation change because Rawls punya influence lah towards the society punya ataupun the political theory. So actually kalau you study law lama-lama, you start to realize that people who are coming from law, they are very influential to the society as a whole. Kalau kita tengok dalam Karl Marx, kita tengok Karl Marx, dia ada legal kan, dia legal background. Kita tengok society in our world today, kita ada communism, kita tengok Mahatma Gandhi, India yang memang dikontrol oleh British jatuh because of him. Kita tengok Fidel Castro, kita tengok macam-macam lah tengok people that is being from the law is able to change the society because of their influence. So Rawls ni dia punya influence towards that lah. So kita nak tengok dia kata kat sini, dia kata about what needs to be done in order for us to change the society. So dia kata macam mana in his book Political Liberalism, he recast the role of political philosophy to accommodate into effectively permanent reasonable pluralism. So we need to have some kind of reasonable pluralism, meaning dalam society tu kita have to face the fact that we are living in a society of a mixed culture, mixed groups. So we have to have a pluralism yang reasonable of religious, philosophical and other doctrines or worldviews. So kalau kita tengok yang sekarang ni Rohingya punya situation, right? So we have to acknowledge the situation that we have berapa ratus ribu Rohingya dalam Malaysia, 100,000 150,000 dekat Malaysia. So but they have also to consider the situation of Malaysian. Kenapa kita tak nak tolong? Kalau kita pernah tolong orang tapi jadi masalah. Kita tengok pulau apa? Nama pulau tu? Pulau kita panggil Pulau Hai Hong lah.
Pulau Bidung.
Pulau Bidung, yes. Kita ambil
Pulau
daripada Hai Hong lah dia panggil itu. Hai Hong. Pulau Bidung dia orang datang daripada Kampuchea. Waktu tu Kampuchea Vietnam.
Vietnam. Champa.
So they are coming because of the problem that we face back then. So it becomes our problem. So he explained how philosophers, meaning we as jurists, kita yang orang yang belajar law ni, can characterize public justification through public political culture. So kita kena make the politician to know what is the reality of the society. Kadang-kadang ni politician dia cuma nak dapatkan dia punya orang panggil ballots lah, ataupun sokongan kepada rakyat. They do things that the society is able to re-elect them to be in power. But itu main game dia. Because kalau lah kata they are not in office, then dia tak dapat gaji ataupun the position of opportunity in terms of economic. And legitimate democratic use of collective cohesive power while accepting that pluralism. So macam mana kita nak tengok dengan keadaan di mana kita ada banyak agama dalam satu tempat, di mana mereka akan hormat each other dan respect the law. So kita adakan macam ni, kita adakan rukun negara. We have rukun negara. Bila rukun negara di-introduce?
Lepas 13 Mei.
Yes, good. So lepas kita ada Raya Raya 13 Mei. So because we have to realize that the society that we have, that we live in is multi-racial, multi-culture, multi-religious. So what we need to do is to have one goal, one aim, that everyone can share the same elements. Kepercayaan kepada Tuhan. Kita susah nak ada atheist dalam masyarakat kita back then. Semua orang percaya kepada Tuhan, tapi Tuhan yang cara mereka sendiri. So kesetiaan kepada raja dan negara, that is something that people respect the rulers back then. But now rulers pun dah tak berapa di respect lagi, because certain people seems to say that they are not functioning as what they need to do. kesetiaan kepada negara. I mean, you have to respect dalam komunism, komunis punya insurgents yang kita tengok bila I saw the pictures that are being shown to me waktu I dalam rotu tu, rotu Palapis ITM, di mana dia my the officers in Palapis, dia tunjuk gambar-gambar kawan-kawan mereka telah dirodok oleh dipotong bahagian kemaluan dia orang, diletakkan dalam mulut, dibuat macam-macam lah, ya, because komunis ni memang dia tak percaya kepada orang yang percaya kepada agama. So you know, they do nasty things. So kelurahan, perlembagaan, kedaulatan undang-undang, kesopanan. So these are the basic basic elements of the society that everyone can share. So then with that, they will tend to respect the things that is being stated in our federal constitution. Dia sebagai liberalis, dia nampak the society is unfair. So macam mana kita nak establish just society dengan kita adakan satu yang dinamakan concept of justice, ya, because this one concept of justice, kalau kita tengok dalam time buku Plato, ya, dia minta kita dapatkan satu internal harmony. Ingat Plato kata kalau we change a person, every person in that society change, then the whole society akan change. Kita start dengan micro, and then kita ke macro. Okay? And when micro change, macro akan change. So the same thing yang Rawls katalah. Rawls dia bawa keluar a teori, ya, nak dinamakan theory of justice. Justice as fairness, peace through social and political institution justice. So dia kata kalau nak dapat justice ni macam mana? So let us use this principle of social justice through what he called thought experiment. Ya, thought experiment. Maksudnya dinamakan veil of ignorance. Kita ni sebenarnya kita tak perasan. Kita dapat apa yang kita dapat ni, kita dari segi Al-Quran, nikmat apa yang kau tak apa macam mana? What is the nikmat apa lagi yang kau tak appreciate? Yang Allah dah kata kan, remind kali berkali-kali. Kita we have all these things that God has given us, tapi kita tak pernah appreciate. So veil of ignorance, according to Rawls, kita dalam keadaan macam tu lah, kita tak tahu keadaan kita. Sebenarnya you nak ke lahir dalam family yang you lahir sekarang? Tak semua akan jawab kata ya, saya setuju. Everyone wants to have a better life. To be, kalau boleh lah saya dilahirkan dalam keadaan yang kaya. Untuk orang miskin dia nak dilahirkan dalam family yang kaya. Kalau lah bapa seorang yang jutawan, alangkah bahagianya hidup saya sekarang. You know? So veil of ignorance ni kita tak investigate. Kita tak pernah evaluate our current position. Yeah? The current position dia kata kita kena tengok dengan original position kita. Okay? Under the original position, dalam veil of ignorance, people select what kind of society that they will want to live in if they are given some kind of choice. Yeah? So, okay, now dalam ramai-ramai kita ni, dalam kelas ni, ramai yang teringin duduk lahir kat mana? Saya kalau boleh saya nak lahir di dalam Scandinavian countries lah. Sebab
saya tak terfikir tu.
Tak terfikir?
Kalau ada tak terfikir kalau ada kehidupan lain.
Sebab kita tak pernah, ya, kita tak pernah fikir. So Rawls kata stop, pause kejap. Okay? Untuk kita nak investigate tentang society, kita kena pause. Okay? Apa yang kita kena buat ialah kita kena fikir. Fikir macam mana? Kalau dibagi opportunity untuk you dilahirkan, sebab kita dilahirkan dalam keadaan yang kita tak ada choice. Adakah kita ada kata lagu macam mana? Aku tak minta lahir di dunia ini. Ada tak pernah lagu?
Tu kasih selamat ya?
kasih selamat, tak pernah aku minta lahir di dunia ini. You know, there are situation yang di mana orang cry out, kata aku tak minta dalam keadaan kelahiran ni. So you cannot control your life right now. If now I ask you a question that if you are given a choice, di kat mana yang nak dilahirkan? Dengan family apa yang nak lahirkan? Can everyone think about it? Sebelum ni, as what somebody said just now. Siapa cakap tadi?
Cakap yang mana saya ke?
Siapa you?
Amirul.
Amirul. Amirul kata tadi memang betul lah, tak pernah fikir pun. Sekarang kena fikir. Kalau lah kata diberi peluang untuk you dilahirkan di mana-mana dalam dunia ni, negara mana yang you pilih? You nak lahir dekat Utopia ke? You nak lahir dekat India ke? You nak lahir dekat Malaysia ke? You nak lahir dekat China ke? You nak lahir dekat European countries ke? You nak lahir dekat US ke? If it's given a choice. Mungkin ada yang kata, tak apa, saya okey je, saya duduk dekat Malaysia. Tapi akan ada yang akan kata, kami kalau boleh, kami nak dilahirkan tempat yang lain, dekat family yang lain. So, what Rawls is saying that kita ni, kita tak pernah investigate. Bila kita investigate, then we start to think. Bila kita start to think, that is the original position yang di mana the society is able to start off. So, kita ni tak pernah bagi orang original position. So, kita ni kata dalam keadaan Malaysia sekarang, peduli apa you? Saya seorang Melayu. Saya ada hak dari segi perlembagaan. Artikel 153 perlembagaan telah memberikan satu hak kepada kami sebagai seorang bumi putera, sebagai seorang Melayu untuk mendapat orang kata advantage in our society. Jadi kalau kita gunakan argument tu, then kita gunakan situation yang di mana nasib lah korang tak dilahirkan dalam keadaan Melayu. So kita nampakkan dalam keadaan Rohingya ni. Kita boleh kata nasib lah kau tak duduk dalam Malaysia. Kami orang Malaysia, so we have our rights. So kami tak nak kau orang masuk. Sebab kau orang masuk pun menyusahkan kami je. Mendatangkan masalah kat kami. So we always look at our position sekarang. Tapi kalau kita tengok, kita start to investigate, kita akan nampak the original position yang sepatutnya semua orang ada. Di mana semua orang sepatutnya diberi keadaan yang sama. Contoh, original position kita dalam Malaysia macam mana? Kita pernah buat aktiviti ni, exercise ni, di mana original position berlaku. Kita investigate, kita realise. Anyone? Ataupun you are lost? Are you okay? You are with me?
Yes.
Okay. Apa yang pernah berlaku dekat Malaysia di mana kita sit down and discuss and put the reality of our society and when we make a change. Dekat mana?
Yang saya tahu peristiwa 13 Mei lah. Then
No, before that. Itu untuk kita keluarkan rukun negara lah. Dan daripada situ kita nampak ISA dibuatkan. Kita tak ada SK lagi, kita ada ISA, is more powerful, you know. Sebab kes Tejempo punya cerita tu. So, apa? Situation mana? Anyone?
When we establish our constitution?
Yes, yeah. When we establish our constitution dalam Reid Commission discussion with Tunku Dor Rahman with the British, bila dia bawa balik, dia kata jus soli punya argument apa semua, people tak nak Malaysian Union, dia kata apa semua kan. So that is a situation that everyone start to realise what what is the reality in our society? The reality of the society is that the Malays is way behind from other races. So sekarang ni kita kena keluarkan something lah, the law of the rights of the Bumiputra, not because they are the origins of Malaysia. Kita bukan orang asal Malaysia. Kita kalau nak kira kita ni seorang yang datang dulu. Orang-orang Melayu ni bukan orang asal daripada Malaysia. Orang yang asal, yang hak mutlak adalah kepada siapa? Hak mutlak Aborigin lah, ya. Aborigin ni kita punya orang asli, ya. Orang asal kita ialah orang asli. So but we say that we have that rights because economically we are way backward. So in order to start off a country is a moving forward together. Okay, it's just like a race. You biasa tengok biasa kita tengok race apa orang panggil ni, yang marathon. Dia biasa tengok marathon. Okay. Kalau marathon, siapa yang akan lepas dulu?
Orang yang berumur sikit lah sir.
Nampak orang yang berumur akan pergi, ada advantages that is given special for those group of people. Okay. Kata dalam golf kita panggil handicap lah. Kita akan bagi pada orang lain advantage. So the same thing in law. In order for us to make a just society, kita kena look and realize the current situation. Without realizing the current situation, therefore we are not going to create law that is going to change the society. In current situation, Malaysia, kita kena pause, kita kena sit down and discuss, which we never want to discuss. Bila topik yang kata hak ketuanan Melayu is being raised by society, so it would not come out with a proper outcome. Kalau Malaysia nak progress as a society, then imbalances that happens in our society have to be resolved. So in order to resolve, we have to evaluate. So itu yang dinamakan kita duduk dalam veil of ignorance. Kita tak mau nak realize what is happening to our society. Kita masih dalam keadaan aku, ini hak aku. I don't care about anyone else. The law says so. Kalau you nak pakai East punya argument, I don't care. The law is backing me. It so happen that you dilahirkan Melayu. Kalau you dilahirkan Cina, macam mana? You kena struggle your life untuk you survive. Contoh clear, you tengok 31 Ogos nanti, you tengok dululah, dulu memang gila-gila clear je. Kalau 31 Ogos, tengok rumah-rumah yang Cina, ada tak gantung bendera? Okay, India ni dia tak berapa sangat lah. I mean dia boleh tak, dia tak berapa sangat. Tapi the hatred with the Chinese towards the country or not being fair to them, you akan nampak reflection bila dia orang gantung tak bendera Malaysia bila 31 Ogos. Orang tengok rumah orang Melayu akan letak banyak letak rumah. I'm talking about not institution, I'm talking about house. Investigate. Kalau you investigate, you akan realize that they have hatred about the country. Why? Because they feel that they are unfairly treated. As a Malaysian, they feel that they have been double standard. Just double standard by the law. The hatred that they have. So it is not a good move for us to go on in a society because we are heading towards the same thing. Kalau kita nak capai seperti mana negara-negara dalam European countries whereby dia orang punya disparity in terms of religion, in terms of culture, in terms of ethnic, dia tak ada beza. Everything is about one. We have to move as a country. Tapi kalau kita move as a country with the baggage yang kita bawa, di mana group ni ada interest lain, group lain ada interest lain, so hatred kalau kita tengok contoh kalau kita pergi kedai Cina, harga between orang Cina dengan orang Cina akan lain dengan orang Cina dengan orang Melayu. Not to say that it is something yang prevalent, tapi dulu sebelum dia letakkan harga, dan tanda harga is a must for every seller to put item tu berapa harga dia. So if in that situation, chances are harga untuk Melayu lain, harga untuk Cina lain. You know, that is the reality that we have to face. Kalau kita just kata veil of ignorance, tak apa, tak peduli, tak ambil tahu, then ke mana kita nak pergi lagi 100 tahun? Anak cucu kita nak buat macam mana? Hidup dalam keadaan yang penuh hatred. So it has to be resolved. Okay? Kalau yang ambil contoh lah my wife mengajar dekat Inti. So dia orang nak, kalau kita ambil, sorry lah tak payah lah ambil Inti tapi kesian juga. Kalau kat Inti ni ada kebanyakannya orang yang private colleges ni, dia orang bukan orang Melayu lah. Dan bila bukan orang Melayu, kita tengok dia orang punya datang, dia punya the family punya income is not as great as what we were thinking. You tahu Chinese semua orang kaya. Tak. Ada yang miskin, tapi but they have to go through life in order for them to change their future. So they have to work. Ramai yang student dia orang bayar mahal. Nak buat satu course, kalau you tengok law dekat BAC 40,000. Tapi kalau nak buat law dekat ITM cuma 5,000. Kalau you ada 5,000, it's enough for you to get through our law. Sebab dia punya fee berapa je kan? Berapa fee satu semester?
550.
550 kali dengan berapa semester?
8.
550 kali 8
4,000 lah.
Dalam you ada 5,000 pun dah cukup dah untuk you nak go through. Tapi kalau you masuk dalam internet, you check tengok BAC law punya program daripada asasi sampai ke graduate, busuk-busuk memang 40,000. Okay, so just imagine orang yang kat luar, just because dia miskin, you boleh kata just because dia orang Cina, you peduli apa? This is my right. Article 153 give me my advantage. But orang miskin Cina yang kat luar, dia salah dia, kenapa tak masuk public university yang lain? Kenapa bodoh? I mean, dia orang miskin. Dia kena realize tau, orang miskin dia punya education is lower than orang kaya. Orang kaya dia dapat everything, dapat tuition, dapat everything, you know. You are given a head start. You ada advantage yang di mana you dah pergi ke depan. So orang yang pergi ke depan, dia tak boleh nak fikir pasal diri dia yang duduk kat depan. Nasib aku punya hal lah, aku duduk kat depan. So you kena paling tengok orang belakang. Siapa yang tertinggal? Kenapa dia tertinggal? You know, dalam keadaan macam ni, kita tak boleh assume that Chinese semua yang kat luar semua orang kaya. Kita kena identify that memang ada orang yang miskin. Dan dia orang kena bayar 40,000 untuk dia orang nak dapat satu degree compared to you. You know, kita tak boleh guna alasan nasib lah. Kalau nasib dah, kita pakai the East punya form. That would not change the society. So we have to remove our veil of ignorance yang kita ada. Then we will be able to see things clearly. Okay, so that is one example lah untuk education punya situation. How do we want to just change our society in 100 years from now? So we have to change. So macam ni saya bagi example ni, Vietnamese Buddhist monk ni, dia bakar diri dia sendiri live, masuk dalam news, people looking at him burning himself. Kenapa? He is fighting injustice that is going on in Vietnam back then. Kenapa Amerika ni dia main lasah ya, pergi rosakkan ekonomi negara lain. Dia rasa because to be in power, for them to be able to be the most powerful people, dia rosakkan ekonomi orang lain. Okay? Kalau they are even worse than the British. The British kalau dia masuk Malaysia, dia kontrol Malaysia, dia ambil curi sahaja kita punya natural resources. Dia curi kita punya duit. Dia curi kita punya kita punya benda-benda yang kita ada. Tapi Amerika ni dia lagi teruk. Dia mana dia pergi negara orang, dia musnahkan negara tu dan habis rosak. Dengan harapan business dia orang untuk nak recover the country akan dapat project tu dekat orang Amerika. Because when they are in control of that country, to rebuild the country, you need people, you need contractors. And the contractors yang akan rebuild adalah contractors yang datang daripada Amerika. So, war is a business. So, ni dia bunuh diri dia baru orang start to, people in America lah. Orang Vietnam buat apa nak realize. But this is to show to the American society, kata, hey, look, these are the things that is happening. Because Americans back then tak pernah apa orang kata care about what is happening to Vietnam. So with this incident, terbuka mata habis dekat orang Amerika. Dia kata, what is our army doing there? Why should we worry about whether Vietnam jatuh jadi komunis ke tak? Does it affect us? You know, it affects that country. So Amerika biasalah dia guna, we have to provide justice, communism is not good, you know. So let the society decide. Kenapa yang you jadi over pula? You know, these are the situation that needs to be changed. So what then? The move and to change the society to achieve justice needs to be done in order for us to get fairness. Okay? If you believe in law as the tools for us to get justice, then you have to realize the injustice that is going on in our society. Changes that is needed to be made on the law, housing, environment, healthcare, education, transport, taxation, welfare. My God, so many things that needs to be changed. Okay, you guys are the only one that is exposed to this concept. You know, orang dekat luar sana tak belajar konsep-konsep justice, konsep-konsep equality, fairness. You are the only one in our society daripada 33 juta rakyat Malaysia yang sekarang ni, 10,000 sahaja yang belajar law. Okay? 10,000 sahaja yang akan jadi people that is influence in terms of practicing law and things. So you are the only one yang tahu how to give justice. Orang engineer takkan dia nak tahu macam mana nak give justice. Dia orang tahu macam mana nak produce good product. Itu je. Arkitek pun sama. You know, healthcare pun sama. Healthcare dia just fikir macam mana nak make people survive. But they do not know how to run the country. We are the one that is being educated to know how to run our country. So the balance itu yang Mahathir tak suka sangat dengan lawyer ni, sebab dia kata orang law ni menyebut. Okay. So the balance and choice differs depending on the outcome needed to be achieved. So jadi kita kena buat balancing lah. Kita kena buat choices. And this balancing and choices differs from one situation. Dulu kita punya balancing yang kita buat, okay, sebelum merdeka. So kita dah kata, okay, now kita nak start the game, start the country. In order to start the country, the poor, the less fortunate Melayu kena bagi certain advantage. But the question is, what about now? How many years that has gone by? Okay. We have to rethink and re-evaluate. Okay, next. Ada lagi 15 minit. Sebab kita start lewat, boleh jangkau sikit because you don't have classes after this kan? I'm assuming that. Ada tak?
Boleh.
Boleh sikit Next is Max Weber. Dia ni German sociologist Dia juga philosopher and jurist. And at the same time, dia political economist. His idea profoundly influenced social theory and social research. So, apa kena-kena social dengan law ni? Yes, actually kalau kita tengok the law, whatever law we create is going to have an impact to the society. So Max Weber, he is a jurist ya, juga at the same time he is a sociologist. So dia tengok the situation in a bigger picture. So dia selalu cite Durkheim, come up among the 3 founders of sociology yang di mana kita kena be aware of. Weber has a key proponent of methodological anti-positivism. So dia memang anti-positivism dia anti-positivism. Positivism, it is what it is kan. So dia kata, oh no, dia memang anti lah. Because dia anti pun dia ada basis. Dia kata dia method yang dia orang apply tu adalah salah. Okay. They argue that study of social action through interpretative rather than purely empiricist means. Yeah. So you interpret things. I am the sovereign, so you have to follow the sovereign command. Otherwise, I will punish you. You know, Bentham, greatest happiness of the greatest number of people. As long as the law can create greatest happiness to the greatest number of people, then the law is good. No, it's not doing the interpretative method. So what we are supposed to do is to look at it as empiricist. Empiricist is you look at empirical data. You look at data. We have to research the data. You look at the reality of the society. Okay. Kalau you tak tengok the reality of the society, then you are not able to gather the data. And with this data, then you are able to formulate certain new things. So it should be based on the understanding and purpose and meanings that individual attach to their own actions. Kenapa seseorang tu melakukan sesuatu? Kenapa you kena study? What is the reality of you studying right now? Untuk jadi seorang lawyer, untuk jadi mereka-mereka yang boleh buat justice. Is it? Kan? No. Saya kata look at the reality. Reality ialah you nak dapat, kalau you nak tanya, you tengok mak bapak you. Kalau ada yang ada dalam kelas ni, sebenarnya dia orang tak nak buat law tapi kena pressure by their parents. By parents kenapa? Satu, glamour. Dua, ialah bukan setakat glamour tapi surety of income. Okay, imagine 10,000 orang daripada 33 juta ada banyak benefits, advantage kat situ. Okay, you becomes the anak you buat apa? Law. Anak you buat apa? Doctor. You know, because there are so few people that in this study, in this scope of work, that the chances of being somebody that can have great income, ya, wah dia orang tak tahu. Sebenarnya lawyer tu gaji biasa-biasa je. Sebenarnya doktor pun sama. Jadi kita tengok pun doktor buat locum yang pergi dekat private clinic dia buat. You can imagine RM25 sejam untuk nak treat patient, you know. Part time lah dia kerja dekat kerajaan, so part time kerajaan allow to do locum, so dia pergi buat kat klinik-klinik swasta tu, gaji dia sebenarnya sejam RM20, which is mengarut lah, kerja macam nak study macam nak mampus, and then dapat RM25. So we have to understand why the individual is doing what they are doing. You sebenarnya you study law ni untuk nak improve your economy, because your parent wants you to be somebody yang able to be not like themselves, to be better than them. So the Chinese punya rule is that you have to make sure of your kids to be better than you, and the kids must make sure that their kids is better than them. You know, that is the principle of society that we have. So the society is actually based on gender principle. That is organized across the board. Yeah. So kalau you investigate the society, then you start to realize that it is based on some general principle. We have to understand what is the general principle that we apply. Okay. these competencies underpinned by rules, laws and administrative regulation. So sebenarnya apa yang kita buat adalah berdasarkan kepada undang-undang yang kita pakai. Contoh, you nak buat law, you kena buat law dekat universiti yang being recognized by the law. Boleh tak buat kat universiti yang tak di-recognize? Tak boleh kan? So you tengok case siapa? Apa nama universiti? Unza, apa dia? Uniza kan ada isu yang di mana student dah buat law, buat study and then tak recognized by the board apa semua tu. Those are the things that nampak tak influence. If you want to change your life to do law, you have to do law with the with institution yang di-recognize sahaja. So you nampak tak the influence of law, influence of regulations into you changing your life, you know. So that dia kata kat sini, dia kata there is a situation whereby there is a rigid division of labor to establish what is clear identification of regular tasks and duties in a bureaucratic system. Kita dalam sistem birokrasi kita yang kita nampak, kita ada politician, orang bangsawan, orang kaya, you know, perbezaan yang kita nampak dalam masyarakat kita adalah division of labor. Orang miskin, dia miskin, dia tak dapat, dia sebab apa? Pekerjaan yang dia kerja adalah hanya sebagai pekerja yang boleh mendatangkan income yang sikit, you know. So selalunya orang bangsawan dia akan dapat advantage kepada dia punya anak-anak untuk belajar, untuk opportunity, dapat kerja yang better. Okay. Contoh dia pakai influence, dia pakai kaki, dia pakai channel, pakai kabel. Ya. So orang miskin tak ada kabel, orang kaya akan ada kabel. So akan terbahagi kepada labor division yang sepatutnya kita kena realise. Regulation describe firmly establish change of command and duties and capacities to coerce. The key word here is to coerce others. Paksa. Kita boleh paksa orang. You tak nak kerja, nak kerja. Tak nak kerja, tak apa, ada orang lain yang nak kerja. So kita ni sebagai pekerja, bila you habis nanti, you punya study, you pergi masuk industri, you nak start kerja as lawyer, kononnya berkobar-kobar lah, you akan dapat gaji yang tinggi. You akan start with gaji 2,300 je. 2,300 is not enough. You study macam nak mati. Sorter, kena dengar, I cakap sampai berjam-jam, you know. I mean, you went through hardship. Tapi start off gaji dengan gaji 2,300 saja. So it's sad. Orang yang diploma pun boleh dapat gaji 2,300. You know, kalau dia kerja kuatlah. Starting off tu memang sama. Tapi in the long run, chances of you to improve into getting 10,000 income per month there. Because you can be an expert into certain area, then you can charge people more. So nampak tak coerce? Maksudnya orang kaya boleh kata kalau ia tak nak, then tak payah kerja, I can get somebody else. Hiring people with particular certified qualifications supports regular and continuous execution of assigned duties. So kalau you ada, nampak tak, semua professionals yang kita ada dalam Malaysia adalah being based on law, based on akta. So kita ada Legal Profession Act, LPA. Engineers dia ada dia punya engineering punya engineers punya act. Architects pun sama, you know. Every professional bodies in Malaysia that regulates the members ada the law that they are holding on to. Yeah. So hiring people, it is based on qualification. Ni tak ada qualification, macam yang budak tu yang nak buat gigi online through YouTube apa semua tu. Kan ada isu kan, pernah you come across. So kenapa pula tak boleh? Sebab dia tak ada qualification. Kenapa qualification is important? Because that is the law. Kenapa the law is like that? Because that the law is being utilized by those people who are in power. Okay, because they are in power, they decide what needs to be done. Because the division of labor, division of them to be able to coerce other people not to be doctors. Kalau you nak jadi doctors, you kena buat, kena study dekat university. You kena spend like 100,000 untuk nak jadi sebagai seorang doctor and so on. Okay, Kim Lika, dia ni lain sikit. Itu untuk Max Weber. So law is something that needs to be identified by looking at the society itself. Once you identify the society, how the society works, the reality of the society, then you should be able to change the law. Yeah, you should be able, nampak tak kataan saya pakai ialah you should be able to change the law. You ought to change the law. Because without changing the law, the society is, kepincangan di society akan terus berlaku. Kim Lika ni dia approach, dia kata law should be something in terms of multiculturalism. Multiculturalism is the realization that the society is basically divided into different culture, different groups, different nationalities. So dia kata kat sini, dia kata he is a Canadian political philosopher. So he brings out the theory of multiculturalism. So one of his main concerns throughout his work is providing a liberal framework. Liberal, ingat sekali lagi liberal. Liberal ni those people yang kata the law should be something else. For the just treatment of minority groups, which he divides into two basic categories. Polyethnic and immigrants groups and national minorities. So dia tengok dalam keadaan Canada dengan New Zealand. So minorities are being segregated, being sidelined. Kenapa? Just because they are minorities, they are sidelined? Because the majority wins. Okay, so it's the situation. Nasib lah, you minority, you kena ikut the majority. Because we are the majority, we decide what needs to be done. So if we were to have this kind of criteria in our society, the society is not to be in peace. Yeah. So any law that you come out with is going to be rejected by the society. Rejected not in literal means, but not to be obeyed in a manner that you want it to be. Okay. He argues that such minority groups deserve unique rights. So you kena tengok semua minorities group. Okay, apa yang dia orang nak? So kalau lah you tak tengok, then they are not happy. If they are not happy, they are not going to follow the law as what you want them to do. Okay, so the state by nature of their unique role and history within the national population. So in multiculturalism, society would be diversified, able to express themselves, creating a much more fair society. So kita tengok dalam US, for example, they have a multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious situation. So everyone have to be every groups have to be considered. What is their interest? Tapi American dia pakai general concept di mana these are the fundamental liberties that they have, fundamental rights that they have. So itu from the constitution. But Kim Lika is saying that other countries, though they don't have a law that is able to carry everyone away from poverty or situation that they are in, they have to consider each people punya requirement. So for example, macam mana nak bagi example? Pernah you tengok dalam ulasan majlis bandaraya pergi dekat rumah orang India, dipecah dia punya patung agama dalam kawasan rumah. Okay? We are not talking about luar kawasan rumah. they can always say that everyone tak boleh ada tokong-tokong dalam rumah. Whereas it is your right kan. But majlis can come up with a rule saying that a certain size tak boleh Kalau you dah buat besar sangat, then they can come in and destroy. So kalau you buat macam tu, then what will happen is that the society have anger because dia percaya pada Tuhan dia. So, kenapa you tak respect dia punya belief? Kenapa you nak impose you punya standard onto them? Kita kita senanglah, kita dah ada kita punya masjid apa semua. They can always argue, kami allow you to have your own tokong-tokong. Tapi kita dekat rumah kita tak ada tokong, kita boleh solat. Simple mattress saja kita pakai. Tapi dia orang nak tokong. So kenapa you nak halang? That kind of thing. So you have to consider the multiculturalism that we have in our society. Kalau you tak nak you ignore benda ni, then susah lah. So in order to adopt better social issues, we have to acknowledge the law. Acknowledge the law means you have to change the law. Change the law towards to cater all these cultural punya differences. Kalau macam tu mati lah. Nak buat macam mana? Kena lah kan? Kita duduk dalam multiculturalism in our society, kita tak boleh pakai satu law that fits everything. So this is what he's trying to say lah. You must remember when I say things like I nampak macam seolah-olah I am more towards that particular person that I'm saying, right? So every one of them is true. Every one of them is also not properly the answer. They are not the answer. They are just one means of the answer. Satu factor yang kita boleh tengok. Okay, so basically that is what he's trying to say lah. Okay, question of what moral imperative, principle that compels people to act, based on multiculturalism. You look at the previous history, racial ethnic supremacy, kalau you tengok dekat South Africa, apartheid, divide, apartheid, you have to be apart. So the blacks cannot go into town after certain hours. Pukul 6, kalau dia masuk dalam town area that is being controlled by the whites, dia mungkin kena tembak, sampai to the extent. Kalau nak you study the apartheid punya rule, you tengok, you baca dalam Wikipedia pun, you tengok Allah, what is happening, that is racial ethnic supremacy. Samalah dengan kalau kita apply dekat Malaysia, ethnic supremacy kita as Malays, as Putra and so on. New movement attempts to replace them with new social and political relationship based on equality, cooperation and participation. So pernah kita buat discussion with other race to discuss things out, let's look at how to achieve justice, how to achieve fairness. Semua orang tak berani discuss benda-benda ni sebab dia akan start to have some kind of backfire, because tak semua orang kan boleh setuju dengan changes. So indigenous rights, anti-discrimination policies, so those are the example lah yang kita boleh tengok. The supremacy of the one race towards another. The outcome is yet to be seen, but currently they are based on flexible and accepted outcome. Jadi kita buat changes to our society in terms of the law, by changing the law is for the benefit of the society moving forward. Kalau kita tengok itu, if you have pakatan, Barisan Nasional, PAS, Ikatan, many we are looking at the previous, so they join together and form a group. They are against each other, but they somehow or another, in order for them to move forward, they have to set aside their differences and have one goal. In this particular situation, the previous government, their goal is to change, to throw out Najib. Okay, kalau kita tengok the differences in terms of culture and ethnic background ni, banyak banyak differences in terms of ethnic and culture punya differences that we have to realize in our country, in the world. Okay, 49 million in 2017 in the United States were born in other countries. Can you imagine? They have 300 million. US population 300 million. 50 million is coming from other places. So kalau you tengok dekat Australia, the makeup, Australia in 1972-73, the majority is United Kingdom and Ireland, and 35% is others. So dekat 2016, okay, the number of 45% others tu dah semakin banyak. Yang biru untuk United Kingdom tu yang dulu dah 43%, sekarang dah cuma 8%. Okay, so the makeup of the society is changing from time to time. So we have to realize that, and then we have to cater for all these people punya differences. So we have to acknowledge. And how to acknowledge is by catering the requirement that they want to have. Kalau lah kata, say for example, kita, I bagi contoh example, kalau kita ni saya kadang-kadang nak sesak dah. Kita ni predominantly kita orang Melayu, orang Islam. So katalah you bekerja dengan dengan syarikat Cina. Kalau you nak pergi sembahyang Jumaat, selalunya the Chinese dia akan bagi untuk orang Islam lelaki untuk pergi sembahyang Jumaat. So why? Because they start to realize that it is something for them to acknowledge. Sebenarnya kalau waktu tu dipanjangkan, certain things, certain companies ada yang jenis tak nak bagi, tapi but majority bagi. So tengok yang ni buku dia, kalau you baca Multiculturalism, this book, kalau you dapat copy bagus, kalau you tak dapat, then if you want to read, I will try to get a copy for you. Okay, this is just one example in terms of green light for death penalty to be abolished. So do you really consider what is the impact towards the society? It is not about what you as a government say. Sekejap. So as the cabinet, the government must be able to realize the situation of people in the society. How do they see death penalty? So kalau you nak impose that towards the people, what will happen to those people of religious background of Islam, say for example? So Islam, they acknowledge that hukum hudud is bunuh, right? So bunuh is something that is not alien for Islamic Islamic religion. Islam, people who are in Islam should know that death is one of the criteria that is provided dalam Al-Quran, right? So how can you say, oh, we need to do something else, go away and be like the Western world? We cannot use barbaric laws that way. No. You have to look at the society lah. Dia orang dengan cara dia orang. Kenapa kita nak ikut dia orang punya acuan? Acuan dia orang tak semestinya betul. Okay, acuan kita tak semestinya betul juga. Okay, we have to actually look at the situation. Nothing is right unless and until kita try to do the best balancing that is possible. Okay, say for example, kalau dia orang dekat negara Western tak ada gantung, tak ada bunuh by lethal injection ke apa ke, tapi somehow kadar kematian bunuh adakah tinggi daripada kita ataupun macam mana? Adakah kita bunuh orang prevent people from doing bad things? So that has to be studied in terms of the culture punya perspektif lah. Okay, Dawkins kejap, habis last. Dawkins dia reject positivist theory in every level. So he denies that there can be any general theory of existence and content of law. Tak boleh, kita tak boleh pakai satu yang benda yang something that is very fixed. You tak boleh kata we are the positivists, whatever we say, as long as it is backed up by the sovereign, i.e. bukan sovereign, tapi by legislative, we are in power, therefore it is law. So kalau lah satu hari orang PAS akan memerintah Malaysia, contoh dia jadi the main people in the government, dia nak pakai certain laws that orang semua dalam Malaysia semua perempuan kena pakai tudung, tak kira dia agama apa. So it doesn't make sense. Dawkins kata you have to look at the situation. The law must be in a situation that can identify law without discourse to its moral merits. So kita kena tengok the moral merits of the law itself. Jadi morality is one thing that he asked us to look into, and he rejects the whole institutional focus of positivism. So positivism ni dia kata kalau you ada hak untuk nak pecah masuk rumah orang, untuk tangkap orang yang haluan, then that's it lah. Nak buat macam mana? Dia tak suka, dia pergilah duduk dekat negara lain. That argument is always on somebody else punya argument dalam web, kita tengok. So that is not realistic. Kita kena tengok benda yang reality. So he theorized that kita kena theory of how cases ought to be decided. So they're more towards the how when it comes to judges, when they make decision, how do they make that decision? Okay, so it is not with an account of the political organization of legal system, but with the abstract idea regulating the condition in which the government may use coercive force. So government can use coercive force in order to regulate the society, but depend on the situation lah. Kalau MCO ni, kalau lah dikatakan orang tak mau respect the law, polis ingat kerja dia senang, stress. Dia duduk dalam exposure, di mana dia duduk dalam keadaan yang membahayakan diri dia, stressful, tak boleh jumpa anak bini, kena kerja. You boleh kata nasib lah siapa suruh jadi polis. Tapi you kena consider lah. I mean, kita ni manusia kan. Can you imagine my wife punya student banyak polis dia kata nak dapat allowance 500 nak kena kerja berapa jam sehari extra. Berapa banyak siapa polis dalam grup kita? A few hours that you have to complete in order for you to get after 1 week. Berapa 40 jam baru dapat 500. Apa benda? I mean torture that situation. But kalau orang tak respect polis, orang kata selamba aku punya hak lah, aku nak jalan. So it doesn't make sense. So the government must come into the situation and enforce punishment. So nampak, polis pun kata tak mau lah, kami tak mau handle lah, semua kes-kes nak saman-saman tak mau. Terus court, then the law is able to support the police and say that yeah, okay, it's better. Barulah orang panik, orang tak takut dengan polis. Saman nanti aku kenal menteri sana menteri sini boleh lah, minta diskaun sikit. Tapi bila court terus masuk penjara, chances is very highly that you are going to go to jail because judges dia tak mau buang masa. Buang masa salah, MCO jalan masuk 15 hari, so nasib lah kan. So the legal problem arise the right answer thesis. So right answer thesis ialah kita kena guna konsep that the right answer thesis is the one that he is trying to put forward lah. Jadi macam mana kita nak dapat jawapan yang benar? Jawapan yang betul dalam masalah-masalah kita nak dalam society ni. Kita kena jadi judge ikhlas. Hercules ni, you tahu lah Hercules, the one that holding the world in his hands kan. Nampak Hercules punya situation. Tengoklah gambar dalam online. So Judge Hercules is someone that is very knowledgeable, very powerful in terms of trying to give justice to the society. Any dispute from lawyers disagreeing about the right answer to the case, we have to look at the one that is from Judge Hercules. Okay, so that's it. That's the end of the class. But when it comes to Dawkins, very straightforward. That dia punya keyword dia right answer thesis. I.e. Judge Hercules. Judge Hercules tu macam mana? Dia subjektif. Dia adalah orang yang pandai, orang yang tahu segala-galanya, dan dia are able to, this particular person is able to give the right answer. Okay, so any questions?
No sir. But saya ada terbaca lah satu buku yang Dawkins buat tu. Ya, tajuk dia Justice of Hedgehog by itulah Dawkins.
Ronald Dawkins So bagus, dia punya input tu you can actually discuss nanti bila kita buat tutorial. Boleh?
Boleh.
Yeah, guys, before you go off, what you need to do is new share. Wait. You need to apa yang nak cakap? Oh, okay. You need to put down questions. Yeah. You put down. You go through the slide or the recorded nanti later on. So you put question, you put down question, and then we discuss dalam tutorials. Boleh?
Tapi with tutorial dengan Nazim.
Betul juga tutorial dengan Nazim ni. Lupa saya. So you can clarify with him lah. I ask him about that. So you dah ada foundation. So that foundation.
Side question boleh.
Apa dia?
Side question boleh.
Apa dia?
Side question.
Boleh. Anything that come across your mind. Yes. Ada chat. Ada. Boleh. Nikmat apa lagi yang kau dustakan? Yes. Zafira, thank you very much. Apa ayat Quran dia kata? I tak ingat dah. Tapi okay, whatever it is. So any questions that you want to ask other than apa dia sekali lagi?
Fama yukazzibuka ba'du bil
fama
yukazzibuka ba'du bil
okay. That is the one. Yeah. So, ulang-ulang Allah kata, apa lagi nikmat aku yang kau kau dustakan. Okay, right. Questions before we go off? Tak ada Alright. So thank you very much. Masuk ke dalam WhatsApp isi apa borang tu? Ada tak borang tu?
Ada borang untuk seminggu ni. Dia ada borang khas.
Ada borang khas pula. Okay. Alright. So thank you very much everyone. Nanti I upload the video
Okay sir.
Alright. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, sir.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi.
Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Selamat puasa.
Selamat puasa. Take care also sir.